In this new version of Illustrator, the 2025 version, we're going to look at using so many things in this project. We're going to use shapes on a path, so we're going to be putting multiple shapes on a path. We're going to be looking at the new gradient options where you can drag and drop things from the swatches. We're going to use the mockup feature, which was in the earlier versions, but they've just made it better. And we're going to get some really cool stuff with this. We're also going to generate shapes to fill areas, and this is such a lovely, lovely feature. Lastly, we're going to look at the contextual taskbar update for live shape. And what this will do is it'll allow us to take shapes and change them and round off the corners. You'll see how it works. It's really cool. And we're going to do all of this in a project, as you can see over here, which is going to be like a graphic that you could either put onto fabric or you could have it as a children's wall decal, whatever you want. If you don't like sheep and mountains, feel free to do any other shape you like. Anyway, let's get started. This is some really cool stuff. Let's start a new document over here. So I'm going to go to New File. And this one is going to be done so that it can go onto a room or it can be printed on the large format machines. And I'm going to make this just A4 because although it could be scaled up to wall size, it's all going to be vector, so it's fully scalable. If the printer wants a CMYK image, we can change it to a CMYK image later on. I'm going to click on Create and my document's ready to go. Unfortunately though, I've done it the wrong way around, but that's not a problem because I can always go and just edit the artboard. I'll just click on Edit Artboard over there and I can change it from landscape to portrait in there very, very quickly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make some mountains and some clouds and a sun in a very graphical style. So I'm going to start off really simply with the sun. And this is one of the new features in 2025 they brought in. If I go to the star tool, I'm going to click and drag my little star in. But now what I want to do is I want to change the number of points in a star. Now there is a little feature over here where you can click and you can drag and you can change the number of points that way. But you can also go down here to this little heads up display, and if you click on the little properties in there, in here I've got a slider so I can change the number of points in the slider. But what I like to do is I'd like to round those points off. So there's another feature in here, so I can go in and I can say, well, let's try this as 5mm to round them off. And you can see how it's rounded them off quite a lot. Now, of course, that's a bit too much. So let's just try something a little bit less. And I'm going to go with, I think 2mm in there. That's a lot better. That's what I'm after, just slightly rounded off. In fact, I might even go as far as going to 1.5 over there, so they're a little bit less. And I can still then go and change the count in here. Now, I'm happy with that. So the other thing I'd like to do then is to knock out the middle section. So I'm going to use the ellipse tool, draw in an elliptical shape. Got to get that right. An elliptical shape. I'm holding down the Alt or the Option key to draw from the middle out and the Shift key to get a perfect circle. So I'm looking for something like that. That's going to be my cutter object. Let's just make sure it's in the right position. That's absolutely perfect. Now I want to make sure that these two are lined up. So if they're not, you can select them both and then just go across to align. You align vertically and horizontally to make sure they're both in the same place. With them both selected, use the Pathfinder second button in and click on that to subtract the front from the back object. I'm going to make sure that those are all grouped together, which they are, and I'm going to do another little circle over here, a little bit smaller, and we'll get those to also line up. So I'm going to use the Align option to just align the centers that way as well. I'm going to give that some color. So into my fill, I'm just going to pick an orangey yellow type of color, and I'm going to get rid of the stroke because I don't want a stroke around the outside. And there it is, my sun is now done. Have a go, get up to that stage, and then we'll do some really simple mountains, but then we'll do some awesome stuff. Now the mountains are going to be triangles, so I'm going to go and I'm going to use the polygon tool, and I'm going to draw in a little polygon over here. Now as you're drawing in polygons, if you hold down the shift key, you'll see that you can actually get them to sort of jump to an exact sort of size, an exact angle there, so the top and the bottom are flat. If you don't, they'll go anywhere where you put them. So if I've got a polygon shape like that, what I'm going to do now is to go down to the settings over here. I'm going to click on the polygon properties, and in here I can change the number of sides in my polygon until I get to a triangle. Triangles are as easy as that to do. If you wish, you can go in here and you can change the corners to rounded corners or flat corners. I think I'm probably pretty much going to keep them exactly as they are, with the corners, all of them being angles. So let's make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to pull this down over here. We want some tall mountains. Let's move that sun out the way. I've grouped the inner and the outer parts of the sun together, so we'll move that one across to there. Let's have another copy of that over there. We'll make that one a little bit bigger, or wider shall I say, and we'll have one more over there, and this one's actually going to go to the back, but I'm going to make it thicker like so. And I will move this one, I'm just going to move them around a little bit like that. I'm going to move this one behind the other ones. Now of course you can't see what's going on with the colors, so I will just change the colors of these mountains a little bit so that you can see what I've actually done with them. Let's make that one more of a red. And we've got the yellow. Actually the yellow will clash with the sun, so I'm looking for bright colors here which would appeal to children. Let's see if we can find a different color in there. Might have to go with something else like that. And this one I'm going to move to the back. Obviously we go to Object, Arrange, and Send to the back like so. And I want to have the effect of almost like a snow cap on here. We're not going to do snow, we're going to do some really funky patterns with it, but I want that sort of effect over here. So I can take one of my tools here, and I'm going to use the knife tool. Make sure that I select this. So I'm just going to select that shape. From the knife I'm going to click and start to drag, but you can see if I do this, it's kind of a bit of a wonky old line. So if you hold down the Alt or the Option key first, when you drag, it will drag a perfectly straight line in like that. I think that's too high, so I'm going to come down a little bit, do it again, Alt or Option key first to get that. Let's do another one on this one here. So I'm going to select that one, Alt or Option key, drag that one down to there. This one here, I want it to be a bit more interesting, so almost like melted snow. So I'm going to start over here on the outside. I'm just going to do some sort of blobby bits like that in there. Now my blobby bit looked a bit strange in there. I might have to undo that and do it again. If you find that you can't see what you're doing or it's getting in the way of the other shapes, just move it along. You can always move them back later on. So one more time over here, so rounded blobby bit there. Perfect, looks like it's melting, and as you can see these three are separate objects. Once again, have a go and get to this stage where you've got three little mountains and you've got some snow caps for those as well. What I'd like to do is I'd like this snow cap, this melting snow cap, to be actually bigger than the mountain, so it looks like it's out the side. So if I scale, it doesn't fit it in there properly. If I bring it to the front, I'll go to Object, Arrange, and Send to the front, or Bring to the front. Once again, it just won't fit in there being larger, because these bits are scaling, but so are those in there. It's easy to fix this sort of problem though, but you need to do it before you actually make your mountain. So let me do this once again for you really quickly. And then all you need to do is to make a copy of it. So hold down the Alt key, make a copy, do your larger one on this one. So what I'm going to do here is to take the knife tool once again and do my cut on this. So a large bit down there, smaller bit over there, out the side. So now I've got this one as a separate piece, so we won't have any issues. I'm going to click on that, change the color so that you can see what I'm doing here. Oh, let's make that a dark red. And now if I go and place that on top, or even just move it upwards, you can see how I can get that sort of larger look to the whole thing, and I won't get any gaps in it. In fact, I'm going to have mine something like that over there, maybe a little bit smaller. You could do whatever you want with these, to be honest. Just experiment, try them out, see how it works for you. And then I'll even take this one and do another cut on there. So let's have a different cut. So I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key again for this, just do a cut on that under one and change the color on one of those as well. So let's take that to a lighter color in there. Anyway, do have a bit of a play with that, and don't forget, sometimes it's it's just an obvious thing. Just make a copy and try it on a copy, rather than trying to do a clever workaround of extending this and pulling those bits in. Have a go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pattern really simply and then apply it to these items. And once again, we'll come across a few little problems to sort out, and we'll also see one of the new 2025 features as well. So to make some stripes, I'm going to just take a little rectangle over here, draw in a stripe, and I want my stripe to go from, I think, let's because this is supposed to be snow and ice at the top, I'm going to try some sort of darks and lights in there, or some blues. Let's go with some blues. Shall we try some blues? So click on that blue there and hold down the Alt or the Option key to make a copy of that. Of this, I've got a second one, and I'm going to make a lighter version of that blue over there. So to make the lighter version, I'm going to just click on the little plus at the bottom to make a new swatch. Now, to make a lighter version of a color, when you come in and it's RGB, it's like, how on earth do you make that lighter? It's as easy as going up to HSB. HSB stands for hue, saturation and brightness, and then you can go to the saturation and you can just lighten it up like that and click OK. And I'm going to make sure that I've got no stroke on those as well. So that's done, and then all I've got to do is to drop that into my swatches. I'll go and find my swatches panel over here, swatches, there we are, and drag and drop that in over there. Here's my pattern, and I'll click on there and add the pattern. But I want this to be at a really groovy angle. I don't really like the way that it is at the moment, and I've noticed something else as well. Can you see, if we zoom in, this little gap between them over there, and that is between these two here. I didn't notice that, so I'm going to undo this. So Control Z or Command Z to undo over there, zoom right in here, and just make sure that these two are actually touching. So I'll just move them up and they're touching like that, and then once again I'll just drag and drop this in and do the same thing again on there, and that'll look a whole lot better in there. You can see it's sort of, I can see the other one behind it. I'll move that along, just using the arrows on my keyboard, to be honest, to move that across like so. Now I want it to be at an angle, so I'm going to go along to the rotate tool over here, and I'm going to double click on the rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate just the pattern, not the object. So switch off the object there, go to rotate pattern or transform pattern, and I can then just angle it to whatever angle I want. I'll go with something which is different to the line that I've got at the bottom. Click OK. Once again, we want another one. So to make my pattern, I'm going to make a little circle like that. I'm going to fill it with the color that I want, and I want a sort of a light brown in there. And then, well, I can see so many colors in here. I'm just going to click at the top on the right hand side to show these as thumbnails. I'm going to drag that and drop it in, and that's then going to be my pattern. But if I were to just make that direct into pattern, you'd actually see the sun behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key to make a copy and apply that to the copy and move that back into the right position like that. All we then have to do is to double click on the pattern, and you can go and change it in here. I'm going to change this from grid to brick by column. This is the sort of thing that we've done in the course in the section on patterns. I'm happy with that. I'll click on done like so. So where's the 2025 feature that you were talking about, Tim? Well, if you go over here, there's a third button, and if you click on that, you can actually generate a pattern over here by describing it. So let me try this again. So light brown dot on darker background color. Right, let's generate and see what happens. And there we go. We've got some different dots in there. If I were to say click on this one, we could try that one out. You've got different color dots in there, and you just click on them to see what you get. And if you don't like them, try it again and just regenerate another pattern in there. It's really easy to do, and we're going to be using this generate later on in this little project as well. So you can either do them yourself or you can do them using the generate pattern option. Try that out. Now, as it happens, I don't like that one as much. I've changed the color of my dots manually by just double clicking on the pattern and changing it in there and then just choosing done. I'd actually like to try a gradient and see how that will work in here. And I want to show you the new gradient features in 2025. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a gradient, and I'm going to do that by going to the window menu, down to gradient. This is as we've always done the gradient, but instead of actually having to go in and putting in the colors in here as one did before, what you can do is you can choose the colors that you want from here. So I want to experiment with blue, so I want to try, I think, a gradient that goes from dark blue, and I'm going to hold down the Control or the Command key, a lighter blue, a very light blue, and an extremely light blue in there. And if I drag and drop those in straight onto the gradient, it will make a gradient out of those colors for me. It really is as easy as that to do. So if you've got a gradient in there, you could just drag it and drop it into your swatches like that. And remember, all the rest of the options are exactly the same. So I can go in here and I can rotate it. Let's try minus 90 degrees, or I think maybe plus 90 degrees would probably be better, so the darker bits at the bottom. Anyway, it's entirely up to you as to what you want to do. Have a bit of a go with that. You can edit these as you've done before, dragging and then dropping the individual colors in like that. But just being able to drag them in as a whole group is really, really cool. Try that out. Now I'd like to change this, and I want to show you another new feature. I'm going to use the Generate Shape Fill because I would like some graphical trees in there. And this is Generate Shape Fill Beta. It's obviously Slim Beta, and it's in this heads-up display. It's actually not called the heads-up display. It's just what I call it because it looks like a heads-up display. It's actually, if you go to the window menu, called the contextual taskbar. Honestly, that's a bit of a mouthful. So if you hear me talk about the heads-up display, it's the contextual taskbar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Generate Shape Fill Beta, and I'm going to tell it what I want. So I want quite a lot of them. So I'm going to say 10 trees with autumn colors. And I'm going to click on generate in there. There we go. It's done actually quite a nice job. It hasn't done 10 trees. I don't think it can count. We've got 7 in there by the look of it. But it's looking pretty good. And there's some other variations in here that I can choose from as well. There's some with green trees. And if you don't like what you see in here, just generate again. So click the generate button. Once again, some more trees in here. Let's have a look at that one. I quite like that one actually. But there's this whole white area behind it. Now I want to get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is if I click on that, I can go to Object and Ungroup over there, and we can just click on that white and delete it, and I can just work my way through over here, getting rid of the little white or the lighter areas that are in there. I think that's pretty much done. There we go, and we've got some trees in there. Let's try this again over here. Now instead of doing it on here, because it's always a bit of a pain to try and work directly on the item, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key and just make a copy and do it over here. And I'd like some sheep on this mountain side, so I'm going to click on Generate a Shape. Once again, I'm going to do 20 sheep. As you can see, it didn't actually understand me. It didn't understand 20 sheep. It's just done 1 sheep at a time like that. So I'm going to undo it, and I'm going to try wording it a different way. So I'm going to say a flock of sheep. Ah, that's more what I had in mind. With a whole lot of sheep, let's try this one over here. That's kind of quite cool. And that's an interesting one as well. It's nice and big and bold like everything else that we've got in there. So I can then just take this, drag it across and place it in the right position over there. So have a bit of a play with those and try one more at the bottom of this one here. You've got trees, you've got sheep, anything else that you like, whether it's a skier or a cow, whatever works for you. And then we'll take this on to another level. I've done some clouds and they're really simple. All there are 3 little ellipses which I put together, and I used the Pathfinder to unite them, and then I put a shape in front of them, and once again used the Pathfinder to cut off the bottom, and I've given them all a color and moved some of them in front and some behind, so nothing too difficult. As you can see, I've gone back to solid colors for mine, but I've done a second one to show you where you could just go wild with patterns. So this one here, similar sort of idea, but lots of patterns in there. It's entirely up to you, but mine with patterns and the pictures was looking a little bit too over the top. In fact, I prefer this sun that I've done here with the bigger areas, or the smaller middle, shall I say, so I might move that across to there instead. But it's up to you, you do whatever you want. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to take this and we want to put it into a photograph. So we're going to use a feature which was in the earlier versions of Illustrator, not the very early versions, but the earlier versions of Illustrator, but they have improved it so very much. So I'm going to make a new artboard over here, and I'm going to bring my picture in to the artboard. So I'm going to go to File and Place the picture that I want to use, and I'll have included this picture for you in the picture area where you can get all your images. I'm going to click on Place and click and drag. So what I'm intending to do here, oops, made that a little bit on the small side. Let me just pull this out. Over there we go. So I got this picture from the assets, and I'm going to take these 2 pictures. So I'm going to take this one here, and I want to put it onto the pillow. So I'm going to move a copy of it. So I'm going to do a copy. I'm not going to do the main one. I'm just going to scale it down a bit so it's roughly the right size. I'm just holding down the shift key as I do it. So let's just get it to roughly the correct size over there. It needs to be in front of those. I will group it. It'll make my life so much easier if I do. So I'm going to group it. I'm going to go to the object menu, arrange, and bring it to the front over there. Now you can see it's flat against something which has got some shape to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to select both of these items over here, and we're going to create a mock-up. Now there's a little button down here for creating mock-up. You could also get to it by going to the window menu, and there's some mock-up options in here. If we go down to the M's, there's mock-up over there. But let's use this one for now. So select both of them, say create mock-up, and then sit and wait for a moment. Now it's done it. So you can see there's a circle around it. If I click on there, I can drag that around. You can see how it'll find its way around that shape there. And if I don't want it there, say for example I want it on the bear instead, I can drag it onto the bear and start pulling it around the bear shape too. But in fact I want it on this one here. It's still not quite right because it's really solid color, whereas that's got a darker areas and lighter areas. So what I would do then is I'd go along to the appearance here, down to opacity, and in the opacity you've got normal. Change that to multiply. That'll multiply it with the shape below, but you can see some of those darker areas are now coming through. If I move it around, you can see where the darker and the lighter areas are on there, and it looks a lot more realistic like that. If you go to one of these corners, you can hold down your shift key and just drag it out to make it larger as well. So I think I'd like that to be covering virtually the whole of that cushion. So I'm just holding down the shift key and dragging that out. Look how lovely that sun is sort of going around that corner there. If you deselect it and click back on it again, you won't see that circle. So to get back in, you just have to double click, and that will take you inside the object itself, and then we can click on it and start to move it around again. Anyway, do try that out. It's a lovely feature, and it's the mock-up, and the easiest way to get to it is from this little heads-up display at the bottom. If you have double clicked and you're in this area, just click on the little arrow there to go back to normal mode. Try it out. Let's bring in another picture. I'm going to go down to my artboard tool, and I'm just going to draw in another artboard, and then I'm going to go along and place another picture. So file and place. Once again I've put this in with your assets, but you can use anything you like, and I'll just bring in that picture over there. Now what I want to do is I want to place one of these. I'll use this one again on the wall, so it looks like it's actually been added to the wall or painted on the wall or put in as a transfer on the wall. I'll just zoom out a bit, and I'm going to go and make a copy of that. So I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key, make a copy. I'm going to group it together. There we go. It's a lot easier to work with when you group it. Scale it down to some sort of size that kind of seems about right. Now of course it's behind that, so I will go up to Object, Arrange, and bring it to the front in there. Let's zoom in a bit, and let's do the same thing again. Select both of those, create a mock-up, and wait. There it is. It needs to be scaled down, so I'm holding down the shift key to scale it down to a better size, and I can move it into the right position over there. Now look what happens if I move it onto the bedspread. It kind of goes onto the bedspread. I can move it onto the floor. I can move it up the walls. There we go, up the walls, even onto this side over here. So that seems to be working quite well. I'm happy with that. I might have to scale it down a little bit because it still looks a bit big and I'm missing out on some bits. But that was so very fast to do. Try it out. I'm going to make a new artboard over here, And I want to now go in and put in a little circle. So I'm going to use the elliptical tool. I'm going to draw a little circle in here. I'm holding down the Shift key. And I'm going to remove the fill on that shape. Now at the moment it just says create mockup. So I'm going to go in up to my selection tool over there. And I'm just going to select that shape over there until it says generate shape fill beta. I'm going to fill this with a sheep. You can do anything that you want. So I'm going to say generate sheep, and I'm just going to say a sheep. And let's click on generate in here. Those aren't bad at all. You see we've got some different buttons over here. I'm going to click on the one on the right hand side, and this shows me the whole thing. So I can say the shape strength. Do I want the shape to be high or low? The strength in there. The detail, maximum or minimum. Detail wise, I want minimum detail in there. The shape strength, let's have that fairly high so it will keep it in that circle in there. But this is what I'm interested in here, is the style reference, because what I want to do is I want to match a style of something else. And of course we're doing these sheep to go in with the same style as those mountains that we created. So let me just cancel this for a moment, and I'm going to go along here and I'm going to select that, and I would just make a copy of that. So I'll hold down the Alt or the Option key and copy it. I'm going to make sure it's grouped over there, so we've got all of that in the group there. And let's go back here again. So clicking on there, I'm going to go into the settings here, and I've got my shape strength is high, my details minimum. I'm going to go to my style reference over here, and you can see you can then choose an asset for your style. So I'm going to click on that, and it says what asset do you want to use? I want to use that asset over there, and it's brought it in, it understands it. And then we say generate, and once again it won't adjust the ones that it's done, but it will generate more based on this style over here, and it'll probably bring in some of these oranges, I should imagine. Oh, look at that. You can see already how it's brought in some orange stripes in the background behind the sheep. Now I can then do some more. If I think, well, maybe that's not enough, I can just change it a little bit over here. A sheep in a hat, and once again we can add some more of those in there. It will keep these ones here. You'll still be able to get to them, and we will use them very, very shortly as well. So I want a whole bunch of different sheep that we can work from. Yes, there's some rather odd sheep in hats there, but that'll do just perfectly. So I'm going to make some copies of these. I'm going to say that one there, I want to use that one. I'm holding down the Alt or the Option key every time and just adding some more sheep in there. Let's make another copy of that. We'll use that sheep over there, and I could generate some more if I wanted to. But the new feature that I want to show you over here is actually, oh, I've got tons of these on top of each other over there. I don't like that one, it's too blue. I like all these orange ones. So what I want to do is I want to get these objects onto a path. So I'm going to go and make my path. So I will use the pen tool over here. Now I'll redo it again in a moment. I'm just going to click and drag to make an interesting path like that. Let's give it some color so that you can see it. There it is, there's the path. Now all I have to do is to select the objects that I want to put on that path, and then I can move across here to this new tool. This is the new 2025 tool, and you just click the tool and then choose the path that you want to put it to. You can see as I move on to it, the cursor changes. I click and it places those along the path. Now we've got some controls over here, because I can go to this control here and I can just change the angle that they're in, dragging left and right. I can use this one to move them closer together or further apart, like so. What would happen if I changed the shape? Well, if I grab the end of the shape and move the shape around, oops, let's try that. This little line here, where is it? There we go. You can see how I can adjust where those sheep actually go. I'm going to just undo that over here. So let's say that I wanted to have these on a circle. What I'm going to do, there seems to be something down there, is I'm going to put in my circle over here. I'm going to select all of my sheep. Same tool again. Now I can't see that, but if I move over here, there we go, it understands that it's there. I can click, pop those on the circle, and I can move them around to any angle that I like. Of course, that circle is still there, but it's invisible, and at any time I could then say, well, let's take this. So let's have that one over here, select them both, and we'll create a mock-up, and then I can drag those onto the carpet. This is where things start to slow down a little bit, and as you can see, it's really huge, but if I grab a corner, hold down the shift key to make it smaller, I can have the sheep on the carpet there. And don't forget, go to the opacity in here, and from normal change it to something like darken or multiply, so it looks like it actually was really there. Darken's working quite well on that. Do have a bit of a go with that. This new feature is really cool for taking different shapes and just getting them to go along a path, as opposed to the brushes, where with the brush you use one shape which gets moved along a path. Here we're using different shapes. Try it out and enjoy this.